Okay, so today we are talking about the nets of 3D shapes. So yesterday we kind of talked about if we have a 3D shape, we talked about what the net should look like. So the net is if you were to take a shape and if you were to cut along all of the sides and lay all the pieces flat, that's what the shape would look like. So like this rectangular prism right here. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces, and they're all rectangles. So when we draw our net, or when we look at our net, this shape should have 6 rectangles. So it's what the 3D shape looks like laid out flat. So all the faces where you can see them, okay? So we set up our Cornell notes and we've got our page glued in. So let's go ahead and start with the essential question. So our essential question is, how do we identify the net of a 3D shape? How do we identify the net of a 3D shape? Okay, so what I did was I put all of our 3D shapes that we use in 7th grade here, okay? And then I showed you what the net should look like. So yesterday we talked about this shape right here, which is the first one on your paper. This shape right here, if you were to cut along the sides and fold it outward, this would be our shape. This would be our net, because how many triangles does this 3D shape have? It has 4 triangles, and it has, it's called a square pyramid sometimes because it's sometimes a square on the bottom, but it can also be a rectangular pyramid because sometimes this is a rectangle. So we have a rectangle, 1 rectangle, and 4 triangles. So we've got 1 rectangle and 4 triangles. So this right here is a pyramid because it all comes together at one point. This is a pyramid. Pyramids always, always, always have 1 base. So anytime that you see a shape that is like this or like this, these two are pyramids, those shapes always have 1 base. So when we have the question, how many bases? There's just 1 base. And in a shape like this, the base is always what there is 1 of. So if there's 1 base, let's look at our net. What is there only 1 of? There's only 1 rectangle. There's 4 triangles, so triangle cannot be the base. So the rectangle is the base. So the shape of the base is a rectangle. So that's very important because now I'm going to shade in the base so we can see it. This is very important because this is how we're going to name the 3D shape. So we call this a pyramid. It is a pyramid. It all comes together at one point, and the base is a rectangle. So we use both of those words to make the name of the 3D shape. So this is a rectangular pyramid, is what we call it. Rectangular pyramid. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next shape. So this is what we call a prism. So we've got pyramids and we've got prisms. Prisms are longer 3D shapes. They're stretched out a little bit. They do not, like this shape was a pyramid again, so it all came together at one point. This shape is what we have here. It does not all come together at one point anywhere. Okay, so this is called a prism. So if we were to look at this shape like a tent, and if we were to cut along the sides and lay all the pieces flat, let's look at what the net would look like. So we've got 1, 2, 3 rectangular faces. So 1, 2, 3 rectangular faces, and then we've got 1, 2 triangles. So 1, 2 triangles. So this would be our net of this prism. Now, in a prism, A prism always, always, always has two bases. So in this shape right here, we're going to look at what is there two of. There's two triangles. Rectangle is not the base. Even though sometimes our shape is sitting like this, sometimes it's sitting on the rectangle, that doesn't mean that the rectangle is the base. We know that in a prism has two bases always. Prism always has two bases, so we look at what is there two of. So there's two triangles, okay? So the base, there's two of them. Two bases are triangles. So if we were to shade in the triangles, those are the bases. So every time you see a prism, you think there's two bases. Two bases, and for this 3D shape, the shape of the base is a triangle. Okay, so this is a prism like we said, and the base is a triangle, so we're going to use those two words to make our 3D shape. So this is called a triangular prism. Now this is the shape that they like to confuse you most on the STAR test because they want us to think and forget that the base is a triangle. They want us to think that the base is the rectangle. They want us to call this a rectangular prism, but it is not. This prism has two bases. The bases are triangles, so we have to call it a triangular prism. Okay, so please, please, please memorize that. Okay, next we've got this shape right here, which is like a tissue box. So this shape right here is also a prism. It's a prism, so it should have two bases. Okay, just like we said before, this is a prism. Prisms always have two bases. So this is a prism, it has two bases. Now this shape is made up of all rectangles. So if we look at this shape, there are 6 rectangles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 rectangles. So we know the base has to be a rectangle, okay, because that's the only shape that there can be. So the shape of the base is a rectangle, and we always, 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 when we see a prism like this that has all rectangles, we look at the sides as the bases. So the two rectangles on the sides are the bases. So if it is sitting like this, these two rectangles are the base. If it is sitting like this, these two rectangles are the base. If it is sitting like this, tall, then these two rectangles will be the base. Okay, so the base is not the same every single time. It's just how the shape looks. So if it's like this, two side rectangles are the base. If it looks like this, the two side rectangles are the base. Okay? So again, this is a prism. There's two bases. So the rectangles on the sides are the bases. The rectangles on the sides are the bases. When we look at our net, these two rectangles that come off of the side by themselves, those are always the bases. Okay, so when you're looking at the net, these two rectangles that are by themselves coming off of the other 4 rectangles, those are the bases. So we said the base is a rectangle. And we said it's a prism, so we call it a rectangular prism. Okay, all right, last shape. So this is a pyramid. I'll show you what it looks like. This is a pyramid. It all comes together at one point. So we know that's a pyramid. Pyramids always, always, always have just one base. So let's look at this shape right here. Okay, it is a pyramid and it has triangles on all the sides. So if we look at this shape and we look at the net, it has triangles on all sides, on the bottom and on the sides. So whenever we are looking at this pyramid, we know that the base has to be a triangle, okay? So this triangle on the bottom is the base. So this one here on the bottom is the base. So if we shade it in here, that triangle on the bottom is the base. And there's only one base, and it is the shape of a triangle. Okay, so we know it's a pyramid because it all comes together at one point. We know it has one base. We shaded the base. So we call it a triangular pyramid. Okay, so don't forget that prisms have two bases, pyramids have one base, okay? So think about that before you know or name the shape of the base. So if I were to give you this shape, you would tell me it's a pyramid, so I know it has one base, and then you look at what is there one of? Well, there's only one rectangle. All the other faces are triangles. So I know it's a rectangular pyramid, okay? If you look at this shape, before you do anything, you say, okay, this is a prism, so it has two bases. A prism has two bases. And so we look at what are there two of? Well, there's only two triangles. There's three rectangles, so rectangle cannot be the base. So it has to be a triangular prism. So think about those things before you name the shape. That's really, really going to help you, okay?